We're talking about why the most important things in the news even happen in the first place, and check this out.
Posts like normalize Indian hate and quote, I was racist before it was cool, end quote.
We want him deported.
If Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. No one is allowed to be that racist to Indians, except for other Indians. Speaking of which, you just watched the Steve Bannon clip, right? Yeah, get the fuck out, you're fired. You're fucking fired. Finally, someone I can trust. Anyways, a lot is happening in the world right now. There's prominent figures on both sides that are calling for a complete end to merit-based immigration. On top of that, Trump signed an executive order on the second day of his presidency that calls for an end of birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants and legal immigrants. This is the first time a United States president or the leader of any major branch of government has challenged birthright citizenship, a constitutional right, in over 100 years. So what changed? Why is this happening now? And who the fuck are Indian Americans? We're in Washington, D.C. Later in this video, we're gonna talk to one of Obama's top officials, but first, here's a quick refresher. This all started when Trump appointed Krishnan, a venture capitalist, to be the AI policy advisor in the White House. Someone on Twitter saw his past argument saying that we should increase high-skilled immigration into the country and immediately had something to say about him. This immediately started a civil war amongst the right wing about H-1B visas, a visa used to bring in high-skilled immigrants mostly into the tech sector. Some Republicans defended H-1Bs, like Elon Musk, who said that everybody who disagrees with him should fuck themselves in the face, as one does. Vivek Ramaswamy wrote a very thoughtful and long essay defending H-1B visas. Can you guess which of those two was fired from their government job for what they tweeted?
Doge co-founder Vivek Ramaswamy will no longer head the department.
On the opposite side of the Civil War was Steve Bannon, and he was joined by many people on the right, like Bernie Sanders?
Bernie said, there has been a lot of discussion lately about the H-1B guest worker program.
Sanders says corporations are abusing it to hire lower wage immigrants for jobs that plenty of Americans could do.
Look, some people made some very thoughtful arguments against the H-1B visa, like Eric Weinstein, a commentator and investor who pointed out that if the goal of high-skilled immigration is to bring in the best and brightest, then how come the best and brightest are already in America, with the second highest being France? He's looking at the Fields Award, which is the Nobel Prize equivalent in mathematics. Except I looked into it, and here are the last winners of the Fields Awards who are Americans, and tell me if you notice something. If you still don't get it, here's the USA Math Olympiad team, and tell me if you notice it this time. But at the end, President Trump ended up siding with Elon Musk on the pro-H-1B visa side.
We want competent people coming into our country. And HB1, I know the program very well. I use the program.
But why were people obsessing about H-1B visas in the first place? Many in the mainstream media pointed out this quote-unquote civil war amongst the right wing about H-1B visas, but none of them pointed out the fact that this entire civil war started in the first place because of a bunch of anti-Indian hate on Twitter. Dr. Submarine says, when all is said and done and the Indians exit the USA, they will leave behind zero cultural impact or legacy. Oh yeah? Hey Siri, show me all nearby Indian restaurant locations. That's a lot, isn't it? Owen Benjamin says they're basically gypsies with a poop fetish and an inability to use the garbage can. Our editor Gaurav wants me to say that I have a poop fetish and that that's the funny joke here, but no Indians are like that and I will not contribute to this negative stereotypes. Gaurav says, I remember working with an Indian, was the most useless and thankless person in the world, didn't even realize he smelled like curry. His name was Shreyas? Wait, what the cut this. I'm not the only one with a poo fetish? See, 72% of H-1B visas go to Indian nationals, which is why I got so much disproportionate scrutiny, even though H-1B visas represent just 3% of total legal immigration. There's about 600,000 H-1B visas who live in America right now. That's 0.35% of the American workforce. So fixating on H-1B visas is like trying to lose weight by getting a haircut. Technically, you're losing something, but now you're just fat and bald. Look, H-1B visas were heavily mischaracterized in the media, and let me just clarify a few things for you real quick. Bernie Sanders pointed out that H-1B visas are basically being used to exploit foreign labor so we can underpay people rather than paying Americans. But here's the thing, 78% of H-1B visa holders are getting paid a wage that is higher than the prevailing wage for that specific job. In fact, it is illegal for an employer to hire someone on an H-1B visa and pay them a lower wage than the average wage for that job. So the remaining 22% is either going to get fined, has to fire that H-1B visa holder, or both. All academic research points to the fact that H-1B visa holders are not only growing the economy, but are causing more native-born Americans to be hired and get paid more when they do. Look, people have tried to abuse the H-1B system. Like, there are staffing companies across this country that try to hire a bunch of these H-1B visa holders, try to game the system, and then outsource that work to major big tech firms in this country. But doing so is illegal, and a lot of these staffing firms have been cracked down on. For example, Infosys was fined $34 million for doing this in 2014 because that practice is strictly illegal. But see, if you already support reducing legal immigration, then this video isn't going to convince you. There's actually something totally different that I want to touch on today. What I want to talk about is how our national conversation has evolved to a point that was kind of shocking to me. There's something deeper going on here, and if no one else is going to talk about it, then this fearless journalist might as well. Now, here's a notable commentator saying about JD Vance, I'm sure this guy will be great on immigration, pointing to a picture of him and a baby he just had with his Indian wife. First of all, you're really weird.
Still a piece of garbage.
And second of all, Usha Vance was born here. But here's the thing. Now Jaden will come back being like, yeah, but she was born here. But born here to who? Because for the first time in 100 years, we're questioning birthright citizenship.
Did you vote to revoke birthright citizenship for the children of people who are here legally?
Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, I do. He wasn't talking about people who are here on student visas, people who are here on H-1B visas.
You're always going to choose this weird exception.
Weird exceptions? That's how I got my citizenship. And that's how Usha Vance got her citizenship. That's how Vivek Ramaswamy got his citizenship. I thought those people were in the club. In fact, most first-generation Indian Americans I know got their citizenship in this way. I mean, I just woke up one day being like, we're doing what now? We're challenging birthright citizenship? This was always my trump card. No one can question if I'm an American because I was born here in Atlanta, Georgia. And you know who wasn't? 21 Savage, Stolen Valor. I'm more gangster and hood than he is. And while the law won't change because birthright citizenship is protected by the 14th Amendment, the President of the United States is posing a legal challenge to who gets to be an American. Why now?
No, that's not off-season Santa Claus, you silly goose. That's Leon Rodriguez, and he was Barack Obama's Director of Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Are immigrants taking our jobs?
You can't say that in a what are we at, 3.8% right now? 3.8% unemployment, and we were at 3.6%. I mean, that is, most economists will say to you, that is full employment. But it is very hard to say that jobs are being taken away by...
Yeah, but let's look at the scoreboard. I mean, we got CEO of Microsoft, we took CEO of Google, we got CEO of IBM, CEO of Adobe, we got half of the former vice president, 100% of the second lady. I mean, I feel like we're taking some pretty good jobs.
You're taking pretty good jobs, but count up all those jobs that you're talking about. There's not that many of them. In terms of a sort of, population-wide phenomenon of, foreign nationals taking U.S. jobs, the numbers don't support that idea. Our demand, Elon Musk has been saying this recently, our demand at the highest skilled levels in particular fields, we cannot meet it in the US. We must be going overseas. Our companies need to be going overseas to gather up that talent because our educational system is not actually preparing them and driving them into the occupations that those companies need them to be in.
Yeah. You see some absurd agreements on people you wouldn't expect to agree, like Steve Bannon and Bernie Sanders both came out saying that H-1B visas were taking jobs that could have gone to Americans and it's being used to suppress wages and it's exploiting workers. Is there truth to that?
So if that was true, there's a whole bunch of lawsuits that have gone on over the last 10 plus years. As you probably know, there are these very large staffing companies, many of whose employees are foreign nationals, many of them under H-1Bs, who in turn are contracted out to US companies whose names you know. They get sued all the time by people saying, I'm a US worker and I was discriminated against and I couldn't get a job at this company. None of those lawsuits ever succeed. And so that proposition has actually been tested in the courts and failed. So there's many things I respect about Bernie Sanders. There are many less things I respect about Steve Bannon. But that proposition, the data doesn't support it. The courts don't support it. It's just not true.
So in other words, it's not that they're hiring an H-1B worker over an American worker. They're hiring an H-1B worker over hiring nobody.
Essentially.
Weird.
Essentially.
So here's something interesting. If you had a group of 100 people that had to make a decision about something like what to make the next school dance theme, how many people would you need to convince to make it into like a Sri Ram Krishnan themed dance party? 51 of those 100 people? Well, some researchers at RPI looked into it in 2011, and what they found was really interesting. You might not need a majority to drive collective decision-making. See, they took 100 people and every now and then swapped in a few who had a really strong opinion about something. So they swapped out 1, nothing happened. They swapped out 2, nothing changed. 3, 4, 5, and then finally when they hit 10, that idea, that strong opinion spread like wildfire at only 10%. Now everybody wants to come to my Sri Ram Krishnan themed dance party. Right, Gaurav? He'll come,
What?
right? You're gonna come?
No.
What do you mean you're not gonna?
I don't care.
I'm gonna come.
That's it. It takes 10% of the people for an idea to spread like wildfire. But what happens if instead of looking at ideas, we looked at something a little bit more personal? What about studies that have to do with race or income? Throughout the 70s or 80s, there was predominantly white neighborhoods where every now and then one black family would move in and take a house. One minority family moves in and nothing happens, and then another, nothing happens, and then 3, 4, 5, and nothing happens. And then when about 13% of the neighborhood was owned by minority families, the white families would leave very quickly. They would leave in flocks. This was called white flight. According to a 2020 study, this still happens to this day in neighborhoods when you look at income. When about 7 to 12% of a neighborhood becomes owned by low-income families, the higher-income families move out. Something weird happens at about 10%. And what also recently crossed that 10% threshold? The percent of people living in the US that are foreign-born. The last time it was this high, the United States passed the National Origins Bill, one of the most strict immigration policies the country ever had up until that point. And now America has crossed the 10% rule once again. So what's next? Trump's birthright citizenship executive order is not going to change the law. It's not going to retroactively change anyone's citizenship status, but it is showing us that the national conversation is moving to a pretty unusual and unprecedented place. We're trying to redefine who gets to be an American and who doesn't. Look, you don't need another video telling you that immigration is America's superpower. But I had this interesting story that I want to share with you.
Oh my God, I don't give a f.
Senior executive, high niece. By every sense, what makes America unique is that anybody can come here and become an American. And those aren't my words, those are his words.
You can go to live in France, but you cannot become a Frenchman. You can go to live in Germany or Turkey or Japan, but you cannot become a German, a Turk, or Japanese. But anyone from any corner of the earth can come to live in America and become an American.
Food for thought. Glycine nationalist says that Indians are demanding in all aspects and yet give you as little as possible. Yeah, wait till you have sex with me.